Okay, in this video, we're going to see what is a variable in Python. Variable in Python. Let me write it here. In Python. Okay, when it comes to any programming language, right? Any programming language, variable is a very foundational concept in any programming language, and it is very much required to start understanding what is variable when you are trying to understand, when you are trying to learn any programming language, right? So basically, variable is like, for example, let's take an example, right? So if I have a phone number like this, okay, if I have phone number like this, so this phone number or someone's contact number might be saved in your phone, right? Might be saved in your phone with some name, right? With some name. Say for example, now here I'm writing my own name, but in your contact list there must be a lot of contacts, and that particular number will be saved with some name, right? Whenever you want to call that particular person, or if that person is calling to your mobile, rather than showing this actual 10-digit number, it will show the name. Right? So, but the actual number is residing or sitting in between, sitting under the name that you have declared for this while saving it, right? This is what the exact variable concept is, and then moreover, if you want to refer this person number, you will be referring with the name of that person rather than the number 10-digit number in your phone, right? If you want to call, you don't need to dial this number again, or you don't need to memorize this number, right? Rather, you will simply memorize his name, and you will try to recall his name or search the name in your contacts and directly dial to this person, right? This is basically the concept of variable in programming also, right? Whenever you write the coding, very big coding, when you want to reuse the same number or the same value again and again, we do require a variable. Right? For example, in Python, if I write x is equal to 10, right? X is equal to 10. What happens is this is the value and this is the variable. So this value will be assigned to this particular variable. So what happens? Then Python understands what x is. Then if I print x, what it will output? It will output 10. Right. So this is how the variable works, not just right after the declaration. This we call it as a declaration, not just right after the declaration. Wherever in the program, right? If you try to use the 10, instead of writing the 10, you can write the x. Right. So this is what it will be visible to the programmer, but under the hood, right? Under the hood, how it happens is whenever you are given the x is equal to 10, right? What happens in the memory is, first of all, whenever you open the Python, right, in your system, there will be a RAM. RAM will be like this. RAM is random access memory, right? Random access memory. Whenever the RAM is like this, right? Whenever you open the Python, there will be a dedicated memory allocated for Python in your system. So one piece of RAM, I mean not just one particular memory block will be assigned for the Python whenever you open. Not just for Python, any program or any game or anything if you open, that will be, if it is running in your system, in the sense it will require some amount of space in your RAM, right? So whenever you open the Python will require some will be occupied with some memory in the RAM. It can be increased or decreased based on the demand. Okay, let's assume by default it will have some memory allocated in the RAM. So what happens when you give x is equal to 10, inside the memory that is allocated for Python, there will be some other memory block. Okay, some other memory block where this 10 is stored, and this particular memory block will have some ID. Unique ID something like 4, 5, 6, that ID number, integer number. This will be the ID for this particular variable, but we don't use this ID, rather we will use the name that we have given for this 10. What is the name that we have given for this memory location? X, right? X. Whenever I want to access the 10, I don't use the memory ID, I'll use the variable name called X. This is what the variable in the Python. So to summarize this, right? Let me brush this up, or give me I'll put it in a new slide. So what happens is whenever, right, this is the RAM, or I don't want to draw a complete RAM. Let's assume this is the memory block that is assigned for the Python, and whenever you have declared x is equal to 10, the 10 will be stored in one piece of memory, right? That memory block is this one, let's assume, and inside that memory block 10 is stored, and this memory block will have some ID. Some ID will be like this, some ID. Okay, some IDs are typically, memory IDs are typically like this, but we don't use these IDs. Rather, we will use this one. This X will point to that particular memory location in the RAM. So whenever you want to use the 10, we will use this X only rather than this memory ID. Okay, this is what the variable, and I will show you in the programming as well, IDs and memories. And before that, right? Okay. So I'll be using the Jupyter Notebook like I already said. So this is very convenient for explanation and writing the conclusions, notes and everything. It will be very easy for me and for you as well. So that's why I'll be using this one. So if you see the definition of variable, right? This is a non-technical definition. Why I'm saying this? See, the variable is like a labelable name that will give it to a value, right? So the value can be later used in the program. This is also correct, but it's kind of non-technical. When you technically talk about the variable, right? The variable like is a container or a labeled box that stores in the data in the memory. That is what we have seen here, right? This is the container in the memory, right? Memory in the sense RAM. The entire RAM, there is a small piece of container. That container will have some memory ID. So instead of referring that memory block with the memory ID, we'll be referring with the variable called X. This is what the variable. That is what we have defined over there, right? These are the definitions for that. And let me clear. And what we can do is quickly, I'll show you how the memory and everything works. See, for example, if I run this cell, let me restart it. If I run this cell, right, X is equal to 10. Now, this line is executed. Now I will say print X. Okay, print X. What it will do is, so it will print the 10 expected, right? And as I told, right, this will be stored in the memory block. If you want to see that particular address of that particular memory block, this name, this ID I'm talking about, this ID, if you want to see for that particular variable, what you can do, there is a function called keyword called ID. We'll talk about what keywords and all later in this later in this series. But for now, we can understand in a way like ID is one of the keyword which will display the ID, memory ID for that particular variable. So X is defined here, and if I give the ID of X, what it will do? It will print the ID of the 10. So this is the ID, memory ID where the 10 is saved. Okay, so we don't use this ID, rather we will use this X. Okay, and then few more things, right? And if I print Y, right, print Y, do you know what it will print? Do you know what it will print? It will not print anything because we have not declared anything. Let's check that. What it is saying, name error, Y is not defined, which means we have not defined Y anywhere in this program from the starting to ending. See, we have not declared anything, right? And one more advantage with the Python, if you see, right, the errors are also very much user readable. It's very clearly it is saying that name error, whatever the name that you're giving, it is not at all defined, right? How clearly it is saying, isn't it? So now what I will do, Y is equal to 20, I'll give. Okay, now again I will try to run the same here. I'll try to print Y. Now it will not give any name error because it knows. And you can also see ID of Y. ID of Y. What it will give? It will give the ID for this particular 20. See, observe this ID is different, this ID is different, meaning Y is pointing to some other memory location and X is pointing to some other location. And one more thing, so one more thing in this Python, right? For example, now A is equal to 10, A is equal to 5, let's assume I have given. And now what I will give, B is equal to A, right? And can you guess if I print, okay, let me run this first. Can you guess if I print B, can you guess what it will print? It will print 5, right? Because A is equal to 5 and B is equal to A, which means what we are doing is, right, we have, let me clear this out. Okay, so what we have done, A, this is a piece of memory and we are calling this as A. Inside here we are saving the 5, right? And now later what we have done, we are also done B is equal to A. We did it, right? First we have given A is equal to 5 and B is equal to A, which means we are pointing B to the same location, right? B to the same location. So what it what is technically saying? A is also pointing to the same memory location and B is also pointing to the same memory location, isn't it? So in that case, ID for A and B should be same. ID, memory ID. If you remember memory ID, like 4, 3, 2, some big number will be there, na? Some big number. So that ID should be same for both A and B. Let's verify that as well. If you are getting that. Let's verify that as well. How we can verify? ID of A. So this is the ID of A. As we are assigning B with A, that should be same for the memory ID should be same for B as well. Right? Right? Both are same. See? Both are same. And one more thing, right? Say for example, A is equal to, or take one more variable, what we can say, Z is equal to 200. Let's say 200 or anything. Z is equal to 200 is fine. And if I print ID of the Z, right? Indentations there. ID of Z, right? It has given some ID, memory ID. Same, if I change some other number again, if I change, right, the same for the same Z, I'm reassigning some other value, something like 100. So what happens if I run it? The memory ID is gonna change. Why? I'll tell you. Okay. So say, for example, Z, initially we have pointed to one memory block, and in that memory block we have saved the 200. Now what we are doing, again we have given 100 for the Z. So that means this Z is pointing to some other place in the memory. Not to the same place, because we have changed it, right? It's like replacing or editing the phone number in our contact. Okay, so it's not pointing to the same memory. Now the Z is pointing to the different memory block just because you have changed the value of Z, right? Just verify that as well. So as you can see here, the Z, initially it is pointed to this particular memory block. Now after giving some new value, this 100 is saving into this particular memory location. That's why it is pointing to this memory location. As you can see, this memory locations are different, right? And if I talk about why we should use the variables in the sense, let me clear this out. Why we should use the variables in this particular, what's the use in the sense? Variables are used to store the data and to reuse the values in the sense, if I want to use 100 anywhere in my program, I can refer Z, right? I don't need to write 100 again. And one more important thing is looks easier for maintainability. Code looks very easier and it's very easy to read and update also if you use the variable, right? And whenever you are using the variables in the code, we call that particular code as a soft coding, the style of code. And if you are using direct numbers in the code, we call it as a hard coding, which we often don't do in the production levels and all, right? We'll not do the hard coding and all. So we always try to flow the code with the variables. So that is how the variables are important. And if we talk about the rules for the naming variables, which is very important while you're declaring the variables, right? See, for example, variables can only include letters, numbers, and underscore. Apart from this, it should not contain anything. What it means is, for example, variable we have seen, right? X is equal to 10. This is a valid variable. And X underscore 10. This is also valid variable. X at the rate, just because it's containing the special character, we should not use it as a way. We cannot use this as a variable. X at the rate is not a valid variable name, right? It will give the error. You can try it if you want. And at the rate X, this is also not a valid variable. We should use the numbers, 0 to 9 numbers, or alphabets, A to Z alphabets, or the symbol underscore. That's it, right? That's it in the variables. We cannot use the spaces in between as part of the variables. And one more thing, while using the numbers, for example, age 2, here I have written, right, age 2. This is a valid variable, but what invalid is, for example, 2 age is equal to 10. This is not a valid variable again. Why? Because the variable should not start with the numeric. The variable should not start with the numeric number. Rather, it can have in the middle something like this, age2, but when it cannot start with the number like this. Age2 is equal to 10 is a invalid variable declaration. It will give the error. I will show you in a while. Let me clear this out. And there are certain, and then one more important thing, variables are case sensitive, meaning name and name meaning is same, but if you see that in this particular variable name, the capital N is there, here the small n is there. So if you change the case, if you change the upper letter to the lower letter, lower to the upper letter, that is also it will treat as a two different names, two different variables. Okay, and also there are some reserved keywords. Okay, reserved keywords in the sense which I'll talk about when we are talking about the keywords in Python. Okay, there are certain keywords, right, in the Python. So in that keywords, we have reserved keywords. These reserved keywords cannot be used as a variable. For example, class, def, right, and is also one of the reserved keyword. We cannot use those as a variables. Okay, so here are the 4 main points you should keep in mind when you are new to the Python or when you're practicing some programs, right? And here is how these are the examples for the valid variables. First, underscore name is a valid variable. First, underscore is a valid variable. Like we already discussed, age2 is also valid variable, and underscore can be also used at the starting. This is also a valid variable, but this is not a valid variable. And first hyphen name is also not a valid variable, and the class is not a valid variable. The reason why, this is a reserved keyword. Reserved keyword cannot be used as a variable. And why this is invalid? Because it is contained the hyphen. Instead of hyphen, it could have underscore. Then it is a valid variable. And at the rate name is also not a valid one because it contains at the rate, right? I recommend you to, once after you're done with this video, I recommend you to go through this particular Jupyter notebook and try to try to practice it by defining some of the variables and all. You will have more, you will get more idea on this. Okay, and what we can talk about variable in the sense, right? And so before before ending with this particular concept, well, after you have done enough reading on this, what you can try is, you can try this simple exercise. What you can do in the step one, like I already said in this at the starting of the series, the practice is really important. Even though it's a very small concept, just do with your own hands. Even though it's a simple or looks like simple, I recommend you to involve in that simple concepts also, so that you will grasp the concepts very easily, and you will be remember for longer term. Even I do that. That's why I'm suggesting everyone to do it. So what you can do once after you understand this particular concept, right after this video, when you want to revise it, at that time, just try to do this simple exercise, very simple exercise. What you can do, assign two variables, A to the 5 and B to the 5, and what you have to do, swap their values using the third variable, which means initially if I print A, it will print 5, right? Because I have assigned 5 to the A. If I print B, it will print 10. So after this swapping logic, right, B value should be 5 and A value should be 10. So that swapping I would require. And whenever you are printing that A again, right, A again, what it will do when I was printing that A again, it should print 10. And when I print that 5, if I print B, right, it should print the 5. Right, so this is just small swapping logic is there. Just try to do it. In case if you are not able to do it, just Google search it. It will have a lot of examples. But I recommend you to involve into this and spend some time. Right. So that's all for this video.